All righty. Hey, well, good morning, everybody. It's Rise and Grind Morning Show. It is Tuesday morning, February 27, 2024, and it is Combine Week. I hope you guys are all excited because I am. I'll be down there on Thursday. So at this point, we're probably not going to have a show on Thursday. And as you can tell, Derek is he's got to work this morning, so he won't be here today. A few things to get to today, and it's going to be maybe a little bit quicker show than I anticipated, but there's a lot to talk about in such a little bit of time. And what I'm going to try to do is do a little bit more lives this week, try to pack in another show tomorrow to make up for Thursday, and we'll keep things rolling. So right away, good morning to everybody. It is the Wops, Donovan Amos, El Torrey, Peter Van Larhoven, the Big Walt, Donkey Kong, Bruce Morton, Tracy. Everybody is in the house this morning. And I say that everybody is excited for the Combine. I know that I am. But let's get to the first news this morning, and that is everyone's aware that we had a signing yesterday. Jaylen Reeves-Mabin. And as we've been waiting for some of the bigger extension news to kind of filter through the pipeline, this one popped out first. And I think it caught a lot of people off guard. There's, like I said in the thumbnail, it's kind of a shockwave that was sent through the fan base already yesterday that Brad Holmes is signing his own guys to really big contracts, what we would view as a really big contract compared to what maybe Spotrac or, OTC has a valuation for them. But you know me, I dug a little bit deeper into the stats, and I had the biggest question yesterday as to how do you sign Jaylen Reeves-Mabin to almost $4 million a year? He plays roughly 100 snaps a season, which is about what he did last year. I think 92 snaps on defense. That's big time money for somebody that doesn't really give you a ton of production. Now, I'm going to give you the good and the bad, both sides, right? The good is excellent special teamer, a phenomenal guy in the locker room. One of the best guys on this team from, the special team standpoint and doing those things that matter. And the things that Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes really love about his players is that he's available. He makes the plays. He shows up when he needs to show up. And those are all great intangibles to have. My only question is, you just spent $4 million a year, which is halfway to getting to, well, it's 3/4 of the way to an Alex Anzalone contract. Would anybody say that Jaylen Reeves-Mabin is 3/4 as good as Alex Anzalone, who played in over 1,000 snaps last year? So when I look at things from a stat perspective, I guess I would look at it from the perspective of, okay, he played 92 snaps. He's getting $4 million. Is there going to be an expanded role for Germ this season? I would hope that the answer is going to be yes. Maybe he gets a bigger shot at linebacker. As we reviewed the roster the other day, we had a lot of big holes, too many holes. There's roughly now 46 guys signed that are active, and we do not have a full 53 yet. We don't have the top 51 rounded out yet. But maybe this is a sign that Jaylen Reeves-Mabin is going to end up being a bigger role in the linebacker room. I can only speculate that that's what's going to happen. I do not know that's what's going to happen. But to be honest with you, there's an article here by Alex Reno, and I'm going to read a little bit about what he said because he had a really high grade for this signing. So here we go. He says, as we wait for NFL free agency to hit in a few weeks, General Manager Brad Holmes and the Detroit Lions are already getting busy and are slowly starting to bring back some of their own players. The latest move to hit the wire as the re-signing of special teams ace Jaylen Reeves-Mabin, per NFL sources, Mike Garafolo. There was no shock that the Lions would want to bring back Reeves-Mabin. I wasn't shocked either. I expected him to come back, considering his value on special teams. See, that's where it stops for me. It's like just the value on the special teams kind of got to me a little bit. He was so dominant for that unit in 2023 that he earned his first Pro Bowl appearance. His deal is 2 years, $7.5 million, with the potential to become $8 million in total and $5.245 million guaranteed, including a $2.5 million signing bonus. Those numbers are record highs for a core special team player. but the salary cap increase could be a factor as to why, or a factor there. And I don't believe that. So I've seen some, of your comments and what people have been saying about the salary cap, and that the teams are now paying more for players than they should be or will be. That's generally not the case, because then that would mean that they're going to pay less for players when the salary cap didn't take a big jump like it did, 4 or 5 years ago. I think a decade ago, it went backwards. So you got to look at the history of things. Guys are not going to be, overpaid because there's an extra $10 million in the kitty. They're not going to be underpaid just because they're being underpaid. No, they're going to be paid what they're worth. Do I feel this is an overpayment for a player? I do. I feel it's a grossly large overpayment for a player that has only played 92 snaps on your defense last year. Do I believe in Jaylen Reeves-Mabin? I do. I think that he's an incredible player, person, belongs on this team, fits everything that this team is about. I just question the number, because we want Graham Glasgow back. At least I do. And when you look at the numbers that Graham Glasgow made last year, $2.75 million, played 1,062 snaps. Jerm was just given a $2.5 million signing bonus to play 92 snaps. So it just doesn't make sense to me financially. I know that Brad Holmes and we trust, right? And I know that they're making good decisions. And there's a reason for it. There's a reason why, they're bringing Mabin back. They see a lot more than we ever will. So that's the biggest news today. And good morning, everybody. Let me see what everyone's talking about here. So Casey says you have to assume that there are actuary tables and pivots to compile contract dollars, and that the data that transcended fandom opinions of player stats, most good GM work, is admin stuff, not what media consumes. I'm not sure I follow you on that one, Casey. But I do understand that there's a lot more metrics and analytics and KPIs and everything else that the Lions organization has. We will never see that. There's a ton of information on these players. Antrax Sicario says, I don't hate the JRM signing, especially the team's ace, all pro man. It's $3.5 million a year. It's just more than double of what he was paid the previous season. And he only plays 92 snaps a year. So here's what I'm looking at then. I guess that, for him to get paid as much as Graham Glasgow did, or some of the other linebackers, I'm expecting that his role is going to expand to about 500 snaps this season, at least, as a rotational backup on defense in the linebacker room, as well as, doing what he does on special teams. There is no doubt that his value on this team as a special teamer, it's up there. I mean, he's definitely worth it. And you can't put a price on good guys. You can't put a price on, the guys that make perfect sense from, your own identity and culture standpoint. You really can't. But he has to produce. And that's what I'm hoping that we're going to see here, is that these early, transitions, these early contracts, these early signings, that they're going to equal production on the field, and that, Jerm is going to have an expanded role. And I wish him nothing but the best this season. You guys have heard me for weeks now saying that I expected him to come back. I just didn't expect this large of a contract, knowing that, yes, we got a small bump, big bump actually, and knowing what needs to get done, or what has been, reported as that needs to get done within your own house. And let's talk about that next. Yeah, so Glasgow did get paid on being a backup. To your point, Sicario. So Glasgow got paid on being a backup, being to Vaitai, and if he stays, he'll be paid as a starter. So Vaitai, I think, when they reworked his contract, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I want to say that he was paid, like $4, maybe $5 million for last year. Now, he didn't play because he was injured. And I don't want to, misconstrue those two identifying lines there. If you get injured and you don't play and you get paid, that's one thing. Like Mosley got a ton of money, didn't play. Well, that happens. There's a difference between being a starter and a backup, and then being someone that is so special in what they do that they barely play. So it's almost like paying a punter. You know, Jack Fox gets a $6 million deal, but he's really great at what he does. And there's only so many punters in the NFL. So that kind of stuff is expected. And I think that's how I could compare it. If you are a special teams ace and there is now a new defining, contract value for that role, Germ just said it. And I guess that's what we're looking at now. Now you have punter, kicker, special teams ace on every team. Let's just hope we don't continue to have a fullback that eats a spot. I would much rather see, Jaylen Reeves-Mabin take over that position and get some more snaps and help out the team, in other ways. But hey, I'm here in this chair. Brad Holmes is over in Allen Park in his chair, and he's there for a reason. So not that I've ever applied or tried, and not that I would even have a shot, even in the dark. So, all right. So Peter Van Larhoven says Glasgow should get $10 million a year based on the Germ deal. You would expect. I have Glasgow earning somewhere between $5 and $7 million to come back this year on a 2-year deal. I'm seeing more of like a $13 to $14 million deal for him to come back for 2 seasons. But when you compare his play again to somebody like Jonah Jackson, I mean, he way outplayed Jonah Jackson last year. And a lot of people want Jonah Jackson back. But again, if you go by the stats first, I would say that Glasgow is the much better signing. If you have to, overpay just a little bit to keep him, it's better than overpaying, Jonah Jackson, who did not perform as well as what we would have hoped. Now, with him out of the game, there was a significant difference. But with him in the game, yes, the offensive line played pretty well. But no matter where Graham Glasgow was, the offensive line did great. So those are the kinds of signings that I look to that, they're on the horizon right now. And so let's talk about some of that next. Eddie Quigley says, I think your assessment on an expanded role is accurate. I would agree that he is being overpaid. The draft will add to the picture on the linebacker situation. Don't hold your breath on linebacker in the draft. Do not hold your breath, because the more I keep looking at this draft, it's changing daily. It is going to change a lot come Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So there's going to be, some new mock drafts. I'm going to drop my pre-draft mock draft probably tomorrow. And I always call it pre-draft mock draft 101 because it's before I have all the measurables and I have the rest of the video this year in the in-person information that'll help me, identify some players. And we'll see what happens. We'll see, how close we get. But the more I keep doing this draft stuff this week, the more I keep seeing changes at where the Lions are going to focus, especially, when I looked at the roster and what we have for availability right now. So let's talk about availability. Let's talk about some of these guys that need to get signed or extended. And are they going to get extended? I'm not so sure right now. Now it's early. It's really early in the process. And the guys that I'm talking about are Jared Goff, Penei Sewell, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Aleem McNeil. I mean, those are the immediate guys that are looking to get extensions this year. Aleem McNeil's on the last year of his deal. So is Amon-Ra St. Brown. And we're expecting something to get done soon. I'm trying to pull this up here, try to get it put together here. So let me put it on the screen for you guys this morning. This is the roster. The salary roster, everything that I put together to kind of give you an idea of what could be done if the Lions went this direction and spent this kind of money. Now, you guys have seen these before from me. We've done a couple of them live. And what this is the over the cap. It's like the salary cap calculator, adjuster, whatever you want to call it. So I want you to pay attention to the big number at the top here, $61.48 million. I have all of that cap space available after extending Jared Goff to a max deal. And if you look at his first year, he's got a cap number of $22 million. And I compared all of the numbers that I did to all of the last, 10, 12 contracts for each position and weighted it based on how much guaranteed money they have, how much signing bonus do they get, how did they structure the deal in the first 2 seasons, how many void years were used, if any. And I noticed that a lot of void years were not used, but we know that Brad Holmes likes to use void years. So there is at least 1, if not 2 void years added to every contract that I did. So when you look at this and then you think about, man, can the Lions just bring in some dogs this offseason to help this team? Are they going to? That's the biggest question. And it's a big question because we keep hearing from everybody that, well, Brad Holmes is going to sign his own guys only. He's not going to spend big in free agency. Now, I've been, on that side of saying I don't see him spending big money in free agency on one player. I guess I would see him spending money on a collective of players, and I'm going to stick to that. There's only one position that I think that the Lions would spend heavily on, and that could be cornerback again. Or it could be defensive tackle if the right one is available. If Miami or the Ravens can't hold on to, their defensive tackles, Wilkins and Matabuki, those are potentials. Those are guys that, are going to cost a lot of money, but those are guys that are immediate impact players. Yes, Peter Van Larhoven, Disner does void years, but Brad Holmes is involved in all that. And quite honestly, Rod Wood does a lot of the contract work. He also said, Peter Van Larhoven says, Holmes has been less than average on his free agent signings. Draft-wise, A+, free agency, a D. I would say, good morning, DM Ray. Good morning. And good morning, Justin Bauman. A few more people that popped in this morning. So I would say that, yes, I agree that free agency has been a little tough for Brad. He has not pulled the trigger on any, big-time signings. Last year, it was Cam Sutton. Did we, after seeing Cam Sutton's first season, I think we way overpaid for him, but who did he have around him? He had Jerry Jacobs to count on, and he had a pretty tough season going up against some pretty darn good wide receivers. The only thing that I would, question everybody on or challenge you on is go look at where those wide receivers numbers were against other teams that had quality number 1 cornerbacks, and not even necessarily a pass rush, but quality number 1 cornerbacks. They didn't have the same kind of game. So I think it would behoove Brad not to find somebody that can step in. And Donovan Amos, so Matabuki would cost north of $20 million, but a good corner is going to cost, 14 to 18, 19 million. And would you rather solidify, your defensive front, which has been a problem? We do not have a good defensive tackle that can really push the pocket. Aleem McNeil is a slimmer, pass rushing style of. Here, let me take this off the screen for just a moment. Aleem McNeil is more of a slim pass rushing style of defensive tackle. He is not a big body. He's not someone that's going to push the pocket, collapse the pocket. He is somebody that's looking to get to the quarterback. Broderick Martin is that kind of nose tackle size, someone that should be able to eat up a couple of gaps. But is he going to be somebody that can push the pocket? We don't know. We have no clue yet. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for somebody on the right side of the defense that can collapse the pocket from that side. And then you have Aiden Hutchinson on the left side. So it's just about pushing the offense where they don't want to go. If they want to go to their left and the right side of the defense can push them back to the, to the right, Aiden Hutchinson's there to clean it up. Aleem McNeil's there to clean it up. A little bit more speed on that side of the defense. But on the right side of the defense, we are missing some big push. And that's what I'm looking for in free agency and the draft is somebody to come in to give us that push. No, and I'm not expecting Matabuki to leave Baltimore. It's not what I'm saying. I said if they did not leave, or if they did leave their teams, if Miami and the Ravens were not able to hold on to them, then there's an option. Small difference in what I'm saying compared to what you're saying, Peter. So Peter also says it's not about the signings. It's all about the production of the free agents that have been brought in to help out. Yeah, the signings are meaningless. Production is everything. We didn't get a ton of production out of Cam Sutton. Based on numbers, yep, played a ton of snaps. Based on his grades and how he produced, not very good. D13 says Holmes never had the money to sign anyone thanks to Quinn, screwing up the cap for years down the road. Good point. 2020. Brad Holmes, took over this team, and in 2021, I believe the cap number dead was 65 million. The next year, I want to say the dead cap number was around 45 million. And now this year, it was supposed to start off around $1 million, but given, some of the contracts that came due from void years, I think we're sitting around, was it 23 was the last number that I saw? Could be 23 or 13 million, somewhere in that neighborhood. Peter, I'm going to be watching as many groups as I can. Thursday, I believe, is defense. Hold on, let me take a look here. I think it's the corners, if I'm not mistaken, or the D tackles or something like that. I plan on being there every day. So Thursday's defensive linemen and the linebackers. My apologies. So I'll get to see, the players that I feel we need to make a big impact, signing with first day. Second day is going to be the D-backs and the tight ends. So I plan on being there for both of those days. I'm not real concerned about the third day, which is, the quarterbacks, the wide receivers, and the running backs. Even though I am interested in wide receivers, and I do think the Lions are in the hunt. But then the last day, offensive linemen, I think that the Lions are going to be big in this draft with offensive linemen. So let me pull this back up on the screen here. All right, this is what I want to show you guys. So Jared Goff was signed to a max deal, friendly cap numbers for the first couple of years, and $22 million cap number. So this year he's about $32 million. So by extending him and giving him a big signing bonus, you kick it down for 4 years. This was like 4 years, $190 million extension. I think it was a $60 million signing bonus, if memory serves me right. So by doing that, the Lions can save $10 million on the cap this year, just by re-signing him to an extension. Frank Ragnow, there was a report that or at least that I reported yesterday, that Frank Ragnow is potentially going to restructure his contract to, one, open up about $4 million in cap space, and two, to reduce how many seasons he's under contract. And if that happens, that's going to potentially open up about $3 to $4, maybe $5 million in cap space. But I'm not going to count on that one just yet. So we can add, Frank's number in there. So that would drop this number to about 57 million. And then Penei Sewell, if he gets signed to a max deal, and I think I put him in here at 4 years, 100 million. And again, I looked at max deals so that we could look at the max potential, right? And there's potential that he could make more than that. But from a guard, perspective, that salary is pretty darn close. I mean, there's some guys that have been paid as high as 30 million, on the offensive line per season. So Penei Sewell max contract, his cap number would be 12 million. Base salary of only a little over $1 million. But big prorated bonus over at 10.7 million. And then Amon-Ra St. Brown, again, another max contract, 20 million in signing. I only put him in for a 3-year extension. Did some research and found that a lot of wide receivers prefer 3-year extensions. They play through them. A lot of the receivers that sign 5-year deals tend to exit early, and most often after their first season. So you don't want to see a signing and then a trade, or a signing and then something else happen. So a 3-year deal, put him in, I think, right around 23 million a year. So not quite the max deal, but pretty darn close. I feel is pretty accurate. Puts his cap number at 7.5 million. And then Lee McNeil, again, I put him not quite max compared to a couple of reports that I read. He's only valued at about 9-10 million a season right now, according to OTC. But there's been some reports that said he could be, worth as high as 17 million. Which is the going rate for a defensive tackle right now, in his age level and experience level. I put him in at about 13 million, just to kind of get an idea of where this could be. So let's say you even change this number by 10 million, right? Well, you'd still have $51 million in cap space, and all of these guys signed. So It can be done. That's the thing. It can be done. Donkey Kong, is the show phone broke or my phone? I don't know. The show phone's not on right now. I don't turn the phone on until I turn it on. Hey, nice to see you back, Tracy. So I guess what I'm trying to express this morning is that when I look at the Jaylen Reeves-Mabin contract, and then I look at the type of numbers that the Lions have available to them, and how many guys that they need to sign. So we have 46 under contract right now. We need 44 more guys wearing a jersey to hit the turf this summer. 90 guys for your camp. Now I'd be willing to bet that you probably pull in 10 UDFAs. You'll probably sign maybe 20. Who knows? But let's just say you're going to have 20 contracts that are probably going to be less than $500,000, throughout the full season by the time that they come in and they do their thing and they leave. So if you spend, maybe 10 million on guys that are going to come in and then exit the team, might be a high number, but let's roll with it. So if you take 10 million off by adding a little bit more cap to some of these contracts, and you take 10 million for, signing 20 guys that are just coming in for camp, well, now you're looking at a number of about 41 million left. You still have plenty of money to go out and sign 2, 3, 4, 5 mid-tier guys, or 3 mid-tier guys and 1 stud, like a Jalen Johnson, L'Jarius Sneed, Kendall Fuller. Just don't know if it's going to get done. I had a small issue with the stream. Sometimes it happens when I bring, for whatever reason, when I bring stuff on the screen and then I kick it off, sometimes it lags. I'm not sure why yet. More stuff I have to figure out. But I think once I build the new PC, those issues will go away. All right. So let me look back at some of our topics this morning. Christian Wilkins, yep, he's going to cost around 20 million too. But I don't think that that's too much money. When you're looking at, bringing in a guy that's going to be a game wrecker, someone that's going to instantly upgrade this team, you're going to have to spend some money. So you're going to end up having to spend the money. Let me put it this way. If you were to compare Ali McNeil and Matabuki or Wilkins side by side, which guy would you want for the same price? Whether it's 15, 20, 25 million. Right now, today, who do you want on your team? I'll wait for a couple of answers, because the point that I'm going to try to make is it's not going to be Ali McNeil. Yeah, Robert, I got gaming laptop and it has a RTX 4060 in it, but it's just not holding up to, 4 screens, editing software and everything else all at once. So no, I'm looking at an RTX 4090 with 24 gigs and I want to say it's the Intel 149K. The best of the best of the best to try to make this work. I won't have to upgrade for 10 years. So Matabuki, says Peter Van Larhoven. So, right there, you're getting one person to comment Matabuki. And the reason why is because Ali McNeil is not worth that kind of money. He is not someone, he had a great season last year. But I dare you compare Matabuki Wilkins to Ali McNeil, and you're going to want to pay the guy that has been able to produce. Now, injuries aside and, the not knowing the future aside, I would rather have a player that I know can work very well opposite of Aiden Hutchinson and help him produce. So you've already got Aleem and Aiden working next to each other. How do you make it better? How do you impact? There's been reports out there and philosophies that the interior pass rush on a defense is the way to the quarterback. It's not the outside. It's the inside. And you can go do your own research and read. And then maybe I'll find some things that I'll share in some of the streams. But it's the inside of the defense that really matters most. If the inside of your defense can't get to the quarterback, can't push the pocket, then it doesn't matter what you have on the outside. And then if you look at it geometrically, and you look at an offensive line and you know how it kind of folds around the quarterback, right? If you can't pressure through the middle and you can't crack that line, the outside's going to hold pretty strong. You need to break the chain in the middle, and the rest of the links start to open up. That's where it starts to cause some of the opening for some of these linebackers to get through and your interior guys to get through, which is what we, been waiting for. Our linebackers, Jack Campbell is going to be one of the best pressing, quarterback linebackers that we've had in a long time. He needs a spot to get through. He needs a space to be able to get to the quarterback. All he needs is an opening. That's it. And right now, we're not able to create those openings. We're always going from the outside. Yeah, Hunter would be a pipe dream. He would be. So, all right, let me move on to some of the next topics here. We talked a little bit about extending Goff, St. Brown, McNeil, and Sewell and what that would look like. And the Lions are set to restructure a couple contracts. We talked about Frank Ragnow, that there's the potential for that to happen. But it's combine week. And, when we look at all of the other things that surround an NFL season, and I know a lot of people say it's Pajama Olympics. It's not, worthwhile to watch. I watched Peter King the other morning with Mike Florio, and he retired. Congratulations to you on Peter King, because that's, one of the guys that you follow from a journalist perspective that has done it right. And, like he said, I was a nobody, and I just worked my way, to being where I was, and he did it right. So good footsteps to follow in. But, they didn't like working a combine, staying up till 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, writing up all of these reports on these guys. And, it's a giant waste of time. But at the same time, it's highly beneficial for a few reasons. One, if you're an aspiring journalist, that's the place to go network. Number two, if you really want to get an inside track and look at some of these players and provide some of the breaking information on how these guys look, and to finally complete the last few steps of the, process before the draft, the combine is it. I understand it's Pajama Olympics. You're not there to identify, everything about a player. You get your team meetings in. You get, the NFL meetings will happen, but you also get the one-on-one player meetings. And those are extremely important to understand, where does this guy fit mentally? And that's where a lot of information is had. You learn a lot, just from having these one-on-ones with these guys. But from a performance perspective, you guys know as well as I do that the college teams puff up the numbers. Case in point, Bryce Young. I think he was listed as 6'1", like 190 pounds. That guy isn't a centimeter over 5'9", 5'10". So they pump things up big time. And when he stood next to Saban, he was barely taller than Saban, and Saban's like 5'6". So that's why you need the combine. You need to get those measurables to now know where these guys are going to fit. And just because they're ranked high right now, like Byron Murphy, Byron Murphy is going to be a good case study for this draft, because right now he's ranked by PFF as the 11th overall. He's also ranked at 6'1", 308 pounds. So how big are his arms? How long are his arms? Because if he doesn't have the arm length, it's going to be very difficult for him to be effective. You could see Byron Murphy slip. Are you going to say that he's the next Aaron Donald and size doesn't matter? Very few and far between that those players come along. So we need to know the measurables to see, is Byron Murphy going to stay in the top 11 conversation, or is he going to slip out of that conversation? And now is there a potential, that the Lions would have a shot at this type of player? And I'm not saying if he doesn't meet the measurements that the Lions should take him. It's not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is now you have to look and see these measurables. Have they helped this player or hurt this player? And I guarantee you, whatever mock drafts, whatever rankings you look at today, they will be different come next Monday by a long margin. So right now, Tracy, I'm watching everybody. I'm not missing one player. I'll make my list tomorrow night on the guys that I really want to pay attention to, but I plan on getting in there early and watching every single one. There's going to be guys that I make some notes on. And I'm going to try to do a really good workup. Might even start writing a couple of articles when I get back, but I'll be late because I'm not as quick as some of these other guys. But I think it's going to really help me to identify this draft because that's what really helped me last year. All right. So Tracy, yeah, I mean, I do want to see Byron Murphy. I really do. I want to see their measurables, like the defensive linemen. Let me wind it back. So if I'm looking at the players that are really going to help this team, in my opinion, I'm looking at defensive tackle, corner, and defensive end first. But then when you look at how thin this combine is, or this draft is at some of those positions, you got to pivot a little bit. And knowing that Brad is BPA all day, best player available, I have to look at everybody and totally shake up the board and look at the offensive linemen a little bit harder because, I mean, as we saw the roster the other day, we have too many holes. You could see Brad grab, one guy from just about every position in this draft. I wouldn't suggest it, but if that's what Brad does, that's what Brad does. I think that there's going to be a lot of opportunity to see, guys really affect this combine in a way that affects their draft stock big time. And that's where it's going to tell me, okay, are these guys now even close to 29? Does Brad need to come off of that pick? Does he need to move up? Does he need to move back? How are we going to get into position to get this one guy? Or is there another guy that's close? For instance, Quinyon Mitchell or Quinnen Mitchell. He's 12th ranked overall right now, 6 foot, 196 pounds. So on paper, he fits the size, that you're looking for in a corner. If he has the long arms to go with it, great. He's checked off the measurables. If his 40 and his vertical, check the box, great. The next question is going to be how tight is he in with, his transitions? How well do his hips move in and out of breaks? What are his feet looking like and his hands looking like when he's trying to dig and, rub on a route and, get in and out of those transitions? Those are the things that I want to see. When I first started doing this, and it was just hobby, was back when Odell Beckham was in the combine. That was really the first year that I took a liking to the combine, and I was, putting all my information out on, I believe, Facebook back then. It couldn't be my MySpace, right? It had to be Facebook. But I would put a lot of information out, and I said that Odell Beckham was going to be one of the best receivers in this draft. And I can't remember where he was taken, but he ended up being one of the best players from that draft. But nobody else is really high on the guy with, the blonde streak in his hair, but it was all about his hands, his footwork, his hips, the fact that he caught every ball across the gauntlet. I saw a lot from the combine that really helped me identify when I watched his tape compared to the combine. And back then tape was, fairly limited too. I mean, highlights looked terrible back then. Big difference what the combine can do to your stock. I've always said that the combine can hurt your stock more than it can help you. Because if you don't hit some of the measurables that they're looking for, you're going to slide quite a bit. For instance, there is one Bo Lemer, a guy that I was high on just a couple weeks ago. You guys heard me talking about him. He's a center, can play guard, Arkansas University. Pretty good stats as far as, what he's done throughout his career. 31-inch arms. You can't have 31-inch arms in the NFL and be on the offensive line. You just can't. He might be able to play guard, but he's going to probably be, relatively just a backup role. He's not going to be able to crack a starting roster with 31-inch arms. So that's why I put so much stock into some of this stuff. And I'm not always right. It's just my opinion. It's just me. Donkey Kong, they better not. Donkey Kong says, I'm guessing that they're going to re-sign Harris today. Which one? Will or Charles? Let's just say neither. So I guess, Tracy, to answer your question, I'll answer it tomorrow. Tomorrow night when I go live, I'm going to talk about my list. I wanted to hear today who's on your list. That's what the question was. Who's on your list today? And has this draft changed for Detroit because of the combine? And I believe the answer is yes. I believe that once this combine is done, we're finally going to have a true understanding of where these guys fit and what the Lions are looking at realistically to be able to draft. So today I'll work on doing my mock draft, my first one and my real first one and putting it out there, the pre-draft one, whether it gets done today or tomorrow. I'll probably just do it on PFF. I'll have to force some things more than likely to get the guys that I want. But that's what I'm going to do. And I'm not going to do all 30, plus teams in the first, 3-4 rounds. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to do the Lions. I'm out of time. I just don't have time to do as much as I would love to. Campbell's on at 10 o'clock today. And that's why I'm getting off early today. I want to make sure that I get a chance to watch him. Tracy says, this is my first combine. I've actually got time to follow. Awesome. Well, I'd love to hear some of your guys' takes. So when we get on live, I would love to get some people to call in. We're not going to do call-ins today. We'll start tomorrow night. Like I said, tomorrow morning, I'll probably do another live show. Maybe Derek can get on tomorrow. I don't know. But then I've got to get ready to head down. So Mike the Marine, Gunny, must be Gunny Sargent. Howdy says, howdy, Will Rock. Howdy. Good morning. And thank you for your service. Appreciate it. Eddie Quigley says Richard Harris would be a better Harris to sign. Robert Welch has got to shake those college numbers. That's right. You know how it is, man. They love to pump their guys up. You're putting it in the mind game, warfare that they play with the numbers. Peter Van Larhoven says your insight is exactly why we need solid guard play. Play Glasgow and draft a guard in round 1. So there's going to be a lot of guards available round 2, 3. I wouldn't suggest getting a guard round 1 personally. It's going to be pretty thick in the middle of this draft. There's going to be a lot of great options. Whether they're tackles that can play guard or guards that can play center, I think the Lions need to grab 2, one of each, so that we have really good backup. And as I've said, I'm not afraid of grabbing a guy that should be a starter and he's now, in a backup role. Or is he willing to play guard if he was a tackle? Because it's all about getting the experience and learning, how to be versatile. Learning the offense is the most important thing. Just getting on the field and getting that experience at the pro level is hands down the best experience you're ever going to get. So I wouldn't be afraid if I was Brad Holmes to go out there and grab a couple of guys that maybe their talent is too rich to sit on other teams, but on this team, they're just going to have to take a back seat unless somebody gets injured, until their number's called. That's just how I would roll. Now, maybe it doesn't align with everybody's thinking that, you take good guys and you sit them, but I'd rather have good guys on the bench than not. You're only as good as your depth. You guys hear me say that all the time. Donovan Amos says, draft a guard in round 3 and draft a receiver in round 2. So what receiver, Amos, do you like? Eddie Quigley says, would you see a place for a European NFL reboot to evaluate potential NFL players? I thought we were working pretty hard. I thought the NFL was working pretty hard on establishing something in the European markets. We've been to Germany. If I remember correctly, they're working on putting a team out there. Don't know when, but they're working on putting a team out there. So I don't know much about the European NFL, if there ever has been, secondary, third tier, to the NFL out there, like a CFL. Is it called the EFL, European Football League? I don't know. Xavier Legette, yes, he's high on my list. I like Xavier a lot. And I see that, right now he's probably available top 75 picks in the draft. Potentially you could get him after pick 65. But his combine, I guarantee you, if he does well, he's going to shoot up. The guy is too good, way too good. Peter Van Larhoven says, we have to think that 2 years from now, we'll be replacing both Ragnow and Taylor. Yes, exactly. So would you rather put the guys in the hopper now and you have them, on the roster, they're playing maybe guard versus tackle. They're there for backup if somebody gets hurt. And you have them now versus later. when you have to add them and then they have to go through the whole learning process. Maybe I put too much value in the learning process. Maybe I put too much value in practice. I guess that's just me. I guess I would rather see guys that are ready to go so that when it's their time to shine, we know that they're going to have a great opportunity on the field and do the best with it. Peter Van Larhoven says, I think you're right in that Sorsdahl is probably going to be the swing tackle. He definitely didn't have a good season at guard. I'll tell you that. I don't know much about Sorsdahl right now. Like I haven't decided where he fits at this moment, just because last year was so bad for him. Now he did come in, at some crucial times we needed some help, and the Lions were dropping like flies on the offensive line. It seemed like, and he was a rookie, so expect a big bounce from Sorsdahl. I just haven't made up in my mind where he fits yet. Is he going to continue to play guard? Is he going to be a tackle at some point? Is he just going to be a utility guy? Right now, as long as we have Taylor Decker and Penei Sewell under contract, I think that he's going to be relegated to a guard role at this point. I just don't know if he's going to start. Like, I don't see the Lions not grabbing a guard this year, especially with, the whole Jonah Jackson deal. Peter Van Larhoven, what do you think about the Yale tackle in round 3? What's his name? You got to give me a name here. I'm not good at remembering all the schools. Altori says, I don't look at the numbers. I would go watch highlights. Okay. Highlights, good editing can make people look really good too. I love watching the highlights, but it's kind of like the Pajama Olympics a little bit. You're showcasing your best. I want to see your worst. I want to see what you do really bad to know if it's fixable, and then, like, I'm not some Mr. Fixer or anything, but the guys in the NFL are. Those guys can fix it. So I can just recognize it. I could recognize that there's an issue, but I'm not the one to fix it. Tracy says McLaughlin, Frazier, Leggett, Oro are on your list. Those guys are all on my list too. Frazier, I'm wondering, how his arm length is gonna turn out, because I think that's gonna be a deciding factor for him. What do you think about Johnny Wilson? I'm high on Johnny Wilson only because at 6'7" he moves pretty well. But I'm not high on Johnny Wilson because he's 6'7" and he doesn't move like a true wide receiver does. So if Johnny's going to gain 25 pounds and become a tight end, great, do it. As a receiver, I just don't see it working out long term. He's a little clunky. He's smooth for how big he is, but he's a little clunky. When you get tall like that and lanky, and he's got decent size, but he's still a little lanky, he's a little clunky. And I know it kind of goes, I'm saying kind of the same thing, good and bad about him, but just go watch the tape again. He looks a little clunky at times. Yeah, he does run, like a 4.5, 4.45, something like that. But he's clunky, and he's just not graceful enough. Tracy says, same on Frazier, Will, arm length. Yeah, that's where I'm at on him. McLaughlin, the other one is Hayden, that I put out early. And I'm not just picking the guys that I've done videos on, but the more I watch Hayden and the more, I watch the draft and where it's lining up, at least through the PFF draft, which is meaningless. Hayden is always available in the 170s. And I just don't think you could ever walk away from a guy like that if you're picking in the 170s. Okay. Kieran Amagachi. I don't know how to say his last name. I can't say that I've watched anything on this guy. 6'5", 326 pounds. All conference. Has the tools to be a successful starter. So let me put him on my list here because I'll be seeing him this week on Sunday. We'll start the list off with that name. All right. Darius Robinson from Missouri. Yeah, I've been reading a lot about Darius. The only question I have there again is going to be his motor. Some of the highlights, it seems like he takes a couple of plays off. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. So, all right, give me a few more questions for this morning. Like I said, it's going to be a quick one this morning. I've got some things I got to get done today. And then I'll be back on. So today's Monday. Try to get out a couple of videos today, and then we'll be back live tonight. Potentially, if we get some more breaking news. But I might have some news of my own, and we'll see what happens. But definitely tomorrow night, we'll be doing off the cuff. And maybe tomorrow morning, if you see it come out today, it's going to happen. But tomorrow morning, I'll probably be doing another live for the Rise and Grind morning show, so we can do a really good workup this week prior to getting to the draft. I'll release the guys that I'm looking at and some of the grades that I have on them right now, and the hope to see where they can propel if this combine works in their favor. So Tracy, I'll put all that work in for you today. I promise. Carter from Duke. Yep. He's another one. That guy, his story. I hope that he does great things in the NFL. I really do. I hope a team that has recognized what he has done off the field as much as what he's done on the field. He is someone that I expect to be on just about everybody's list, to be honest with you. Zach Zinter goes later due to breaking his leg, potentially. Good morning, Ryan Van Valkenburg. Good to see you this morning. Just getting in here, and I'm just leaving here in a minute. So who are the guys that we feel are going to fall? Let me finish this out with. The top 30 right now on PFF. Okay, and then I got the big board queued up. We'll probably do some of that tomorrow. PFF's big board, and just go through it and see who's going to rise or fall, and just have a little bit of fun with it. So Caleb Williams, this is the number one quarterback in the draft right now. More than likely is going to the Bears. I do want to have a conversation about, at some point, what does this mean for the Lions? And I don't necessarily want to do it in videos. I would love to have an open, conversation about the Bears, the Vikings and the Packers, and what their draft is going to do potentially for the Lions and where they're headed. Because right now the Bears are on their heels. And if they pick up Caleb Williams at number 1, and then they turn around and grab, like a Nate Wiggins or somebody, or a Romy Odunze at number 9, we're in trouble. So how is Brad? This is why I'm worried about what Brad's going to do a little bit, because how is Brad going to take into consideration what those teams are doing and what we need to do to get better? And sometimes when you draft guys, they might take till week 4, 5, or 6 to really get out of their shell. But we need guys that can come in and play. And a lot of times you're only going to get that through free agency. Your first round guys, we've done great, right? I mean, the last few drafts, you see, Aiden Hutchinson, he jumped off the page right away. We expected it. It took him a little bit, but then he jumped off the page. He's been very good. He hasn't been elite yet, but he's been very good. High quality starter. But let's look at some of the later round guys. You hit on St. Brown. This last season, you jumped up to take Jack Campbell and Jahmyr Gibbs. Everybody doubted you but me. Those guys worked out well. Hendon Hooker, I expected to be on this team. Haven't seen him play yet, but I'm expecting nothing but greatness from that guy this season, even though he probably won't, see the field in a regular game. But preseason, we'll see him. The Lions had hit Malcolm Rodriguez, his first season. He was talked about by everybody. And for all intents and purposes, he was brought in to be a starter in year 1 and then relegated to a backup role in year 2. But that's a pretty darn good backup. Somebody that started and affected that defense in a very positive way. Sam Laporta this year. Nobody expects a tight end to have a great first season. If they get above 500 yards, it's an incredible season. And dare I say, he had an all-pro type of season. He didn't get all of the accolades that he deserved, But then you got Brian Branch, another guy, round 2. Again, you're not expecting a DB to be able to come in and have that type of effect in year 1, and he did. These are the types of players that Brad Holmes brings in that are affecting our team immediately. But are these guys going to be elite enough to be able to push us over the edge in 2024 from the guys that he drafts in 2024? So Jahmyr Gibbs, Jack Campbell, Sam Laporta, Brian Branch, Hendon Hooker are top 5 picks, round 1s, 2, and 3. And then rounds 3, 5, and 7, Broderick Martin didn't do anything. Colby Sorsdal didn't do anything. And Antoine Green didn't do anything. So we hit on better than 50%. What's that number? Like 57, 60%, something like that. And that's what we're expecting again this year. Is where is Brad going to find us an immediate starter that's going to affect this team in a positive manner? In 2022, he picked up Aiden Hutchinson. Great first season, even better second. Jamison Williams didn't come alive until the last 3-4 games of last season. Josh Paschal hasn't done anything yet. Kirby Joseph has had flashes of greatness. Tight end James Mitchell hasn't done anything yet. Linebacker Malcolm Rodriguez in the 6th round, dare I say, was the best pick out of that draft other than Aiden Hutchinson. Then you have James Houston, showed flashes of greatness, hasn't made it really back to the field to show us anything else yet. Cornerback Chase Lucas hasn't done anything yet. Been relegated to a very low backup role on and off the team. So this is where we expect Brad Holmes to knock it out the park in 2024. We have to find someone on the defense that can affect the line of scrimmage. We have to find someone in the back of the defense that can hold down, the number 1 wide receivers. On the offensive side of the ball, it's the trenches. It's securing what is your best trait on offense is your offensive line. Without that offensive line, this offense doesn't work. I think we all know that. I think every team knows that. So what I see in this draft right now, early predictions are heavy offensive line picks, right side of the defense, and cornerback, if not a safety. And if he doesn't pick up anybody in the draft because he did it in free agency, then you can take him off the list, so to speak. But I'm still not sold that we don't take a linebacker in this draft. If you get the right linebacker that can be a pure edge rusher, but also, play in coverage pretty well, that's a commodity that we just don't have on this team right now. I mean, Alex Anzalone does okay. Jack Campbell should do better, but he hasn't shown the coverage ability yet. He does okay. And I mean, Jaylen Reeves-Mabin, I guess he better have an all-star season this season playing linebacker. So there's a lot of options left in front of the Lions. I guess what I'm trying to point out here is Brad Holmes does very well in these drafts, but it's almost like we're missing a couple of big pieces right now. And this draft is very thin where we need these big pieces. So I'm hoping that he really digs in, finds the pieces that we need this year versus best player available. And you can combine the two. It would be the best defensive tackle available at that moment or the best linebacker available at that moment. You can kind of combine those two. But I hope he addresses needs this year and not just best player. Yes, they got to be a great fit, all that jazz, right? All the Brad Holmes-isms, they've got to fit. But we need to settle up the missing pieces. And in free agency, he's got to go mid-tier better, my opinion. But if he does, this could be a slam dunk kind of season for the Detroit Lions. So look forward to the combine to answer some of these questions for us. And we'll see, just like Tracy says, we will see what Brad Holmes does. Al Torrey says, heard that Caleb is just doing his pro day. Yeah, Caleb Williams, again, he feels it's a waste of time to do the combine. And I would say that there's a lot of good things to do at the combine for a quarterback. So it makes me question, his ability as a quarterback. Is this going to hurt his stock that he's not going to go in and show everybody what he can do? Or is there some worries about his arm talent? He's got a heck of an arm, but how accurate is he going to be? When you do your pro day, I mean, those are very well scripted plays. You know where players are going to be, when they're going to be there, and it's very well scripted. At the combine, it is not. You do not have any relationship with any of these guys you're throwing to, and it can really hurt you. Wide receiver Jalen Coker from Holy Cross look good. Yep. And are you going to be casting from the combine or the hotel or something? More than likely. I'll do something. Depending on the weather down there, I might be outside. I don't know. I like doing it from the outside too. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, until tomorrow morning or until you guys hear from me later today, I appreciate you guys joining the Rise and Grind morning show this morning. We'll have a better lineup and a list for you tomorrow. Hopefully Derek will be back tomorrow. We'll see. And I know it's kind of a late scheduled edition for a show, but we will not have one on Thursday as we know right now. But pay attention to the headlines. Brad Holmes just got the motor started and the engine is revving. So what's next? What is he going to do next? Right now, you can sign your own guys. Anybody that is a true free agent that is, not on a team is able to sign. And the other guys that are free agents that won't be released until the 13th, some of them will be at the combine this week. And some of them will be having conversations with head coaches and GMs from around the league. You better believe my eyes will be out and paying attention to who's who and who's talking to what and where these conversations may lead to here in the near future. So, all right, y'all. Appreciate y'all joining Rise and Grind Morning Show. Please don't forget to subscribe to @Rockdown Syndicate. And that's where you're going to find the Rise and Grind Morning Show, primarily starting April 1st, if not before. This show is only going to be broadcast on @Rockdown Syndicate on YouTube. And for your sports, get all your sports in one place. Please go check out sportspider.com. That's SPORTSPYDER.com. Sport Spider. Get all of your sports in one place. Like I've always told you guys, you're going to love it. I've got some great comments back from some of the subscribers here in the chat that have visited it, and they couldn't believe at how organized you can make your daily news feed. And guess who you'll see there? You'll see us there. We're featured. And you'll be able to get all of our shows right from their website. You don't even have to go to YouTube. But I don't know how the chat and all that works. But anyway, check it out. Share the page. Like the page. Send us a shout out. You can always email us at info@rockdownpodcastnetwork.com. If you have ideas, if you would like to come on the show as a guest, you can do that as well. You just got to email us and let us know. We will get you guys on. We'll open up the phone lines this week before the combine. And until next time, you guys take care. Go One Pride. Go Detroit Lions. We'll see y'all later. Bye-bye.